think that we're going to get started here. Welcome to all of those who are here in person, and also all those who are joining us online. Welcome to Conversations on Christianity, where we have conversations on Christianity, where faith and different aspects of life intersect. I'm very excited today to have Adam Braud join us. Adam is a nutrition and fitness coach. And he is a great man of God, very involved in ministry for a lot of years, and very passionate about helping ministry leaders and the people of God be healthy. And just as a way to introduce Adam, I want to let him kind of fill you all in on his life and his work here in just a moment. But my own health journey started in this most significant way about a year and a half ago. And at that point, I was about 90 pounds heavier than I am now. And I was meal prepping for the week like I normally do. And that morning I was in the office doing something else and listening to podcasts. And I listened to a podcast that Adam was on. And this was the first time I'd ever heard of him or heard from him. And that podcast was really a catalyst to me going down this path of nutrition and change in my own life. So, Adam, I'm super, super glad that you're here. You have made a huge impact on my life already, and I know that you can do that for a lot of others. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's always interesting to hear that, when you do, you just do something you're passionate about, somehow it helps people. So I'm really happy that it helped you in some way. So 90 pounds is not a small amount. So that's a small child.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. So great. Well, Adam, can you just give us a brief introduction of yourself? Who are you? What do you do? What are the most important things about you in your life? What are you doing right now? What does your work look like? Can you just kind of give us a rundown for people who haven't heard of you yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Adam. I'm originally from Louisiana. I'm married to my wife, Kim, for 23 years now. I have one daughter, Zoe. She's 13. She's the light of our life. She's a great kid. So, but what I do is I help specifically. I'll help anyone, but I specifically focus on helping people in the ministry, either who are believers or work in the ministry or some form of nonprofit, to either find their health or continue their health so that they can thrive in the thing that they feel called to do. Because one of the things, I've been in the ministry a long time, for more than 30 years. And one of the things that really stuck out to me is the number of people who go see Jesus early in a way, or they really start to suffer in their most influential years when they should be the wisest and be able to give us, serve back into the younger generation. They're usually fighting for their life in some way because of some form of chronic disease. And I just really feel passionate about helping people find their health and continue to do what God's called them to do. So I am a personal trainer, functional nutritionist, but I am a pastor as well. I have pastored for years, and I really find that health, especially when you're dealing with people who are trying to get to a place where they can really take care of it, it's a lot of pastoring involved too, because your health touches not only your physical body, but it touches your emotions, your spirit, it touches everything. Like the saying goes, is if you can have 1,000 problems in life, but if you have a health problem, you only have one problem.
Yeah.
So I really focus on that because I really believe in God's people. I believe in the calling of God on people's lives. And I hate to see people cut their ministry years short just from lack of information or lack of accountability in certain areas. So I do my best to help as best I can.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, thank you. And you bring up a good point that it's amazing how I think that health is probably the number one question on most people's minds right now. At my previous congregation, I'm new here to Lutheran Church of the Master, but at my previous congregation, we did a survey of our married couples. And in that survey, we kind of identified 5 different kind of areas of life or different aspects of life that we asked them to rank themselves on of, how well do you think you're doing in these things? So it was like finances and conflict resolution and health, and there were kind of a handful of them. And I thought for sure finances was going to be number one. I thought I thought that was going to be the number one thing that people felt like they needed help on, but it was
Yeah.
actually health. Like far and away, health was the number one question that people had, and I think that just for the most part, either people are recognizing that young people, even kids, are they're more obese than ever before. They have other adverse health issues
Mhm.
like ADHD and
Mhm.
prediabetes and these kinds of things. Or even if you're a little bit older, health is obviously a huge issue that you
Mhm.
have, a huge question that you have. And as a pastor, Adam, that when you talk to people and make calls on people, that's the number one thing that you talk about. Like I've almost got a medical degree. I've been pastoring for 10 years, so like I practically have a medical degree now because I know so much about the hospital system and about sickness. Because when people talk to you, that's what they talk about is their health, especially as
Exactly.
they're aging. So I think it's the number one question on people's minds. So talk to me about how the issue, the challenge that we have with this health thing that really dominates a lot of our lives. Why does that feel like that's so separate from the spiritual life that they have? Because you seem to see how it's just woven together real clear in your life, and it's part of your ministry. But why do we tend to separate? Can you talk about that separation of like the
Yeah.
body and the spirit a little bit?
Yeah, I was chewing on this earlier, because I think it's a combination of a few things. I think one, many of us as believers, for whatever tradition we come from, we kind of get this idea that the flesh counts for nothing, right? Like the flesh is the enemy in a sense, right? But faith and the Spirit and the Holy Spirit and walking with Christ, abiding with Him, John 15, right? Those are the most paramount things that must be done.
Yeah.
I believe those things are true. But again, we have that type of teaching or thinking, I think, I think we've done a poor job in the church. Just I've been in the church for many, many decades, so I think we've done not a great job in that. But there's also the transition of culture has really changed. Our lives over just the last few decades have become increasingly more sedentary. Our food system increasingly more corrupted and profitized more than health, right? Which is one thing we're seeing some people are trying to do in the government now, which for better or worse, at least somebody's trying. You know what I mean? Um, so I think we've seen a real increase in what I would call lifestyle created disease
Yeah.
because our lifestyles have changed so much. On top of that, we have this disconnect inside the church where it's like we kind of separate my faith in Christ and what my doctor would say, right? So we have these two pillars that, if you really think about it, they go hand in hand because if if some people will be like, well, I'm super depressed today. Well, you could be depressed. You could be being spiritually oppressed by something, or you could have a vitamin B12 deficiency,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
right? So which one is it,
Hmm.
right? And if you're not covering certain bases, then you can't really rule out that it's not a B12 deficiency,
Yeah.
right? So we have this thing where if you really think about how we walk with the Lord, it's a cooperation. We walk with him, right? The book of Amos says, how can two walk together unless they agree, right? So we agree to walk with the Lord hand in hand, but many times we think he's just supposed to heal me. Like
Yes.
he's just supposed to heal me. But it's kind of like saying, hey, I didn't wear my seatbelt and I flew through the windshield. Now I need the Lord to heal me. Well, you did kind of give yourself a little bit of an advantage to flying through the windshield. You know what I mean? Like you didn't do your due diligence in a sense. So I think there's just a disconnect
Yeah.
between what the body really counts for
Hmm.
and what it really means to walk in abundant life.
Yeah.
John
Yes.
10:10. I think abundant life is not just a spiritual thing. I think not having a health problem is abundant life
Hmm.
as well, right?
Yeah.
So I just really feel like there's a shift in culture, a shift in food system, a shift in just the way our lives are, and our teaching has not caught up with the fact that we used to have to earn our calories. We used to be an agrarian society, more of a blue collar society.
Yes.
So you moved all day,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you kind of eat whatever you want, especially if the food system was clean.
Yeah.
Now the food system is not clean, and we sit down all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're not earning those calories. We're not outputting a lot.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we're just waiting for the doctor to heal us rather than sometimes
Mm-hmm.
taking action on what we know we can do,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. That's really well put. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because I think
Yeah.
this is the boring part of this. But I
Yeah.
do want to add a little bit to piggyback of what you were saying that sometimes we have made the spirit and the body a false dichotomy, where there is
Yes.
definitely the flesh that, especially Paul talks about in Scripture, and our flesh does lie to us, and our flesh is broken, and it does work against us. Um, but the flesh is not equal to our body. Those aren't those aren't
Yes.
completely overlapped. They are overlapped a little bit, but they're not completely overlapped. And when God made Adam and Eve, He made them as bodies, like He made them as physical beings in a physical place.
Mhm.
And then at the end of all things, we read about new heaven and new earth, where heaven comes down to earth, and God resides on earth with His resurrected people that were
Mhm.
resurrected in bodies again. So our whole eternal life is meant to be lived in a body, and that includes
Yes.
starting now. And so, yeah,
Yes.
our body is broken because of sin, and there's all sorts of dysfunction that goes along with that. But ultimately, our hope, our future, is to be a body again, just
Exactly.
glorified and remade and recreated, and like Jesus' body, because He's a physical body right now too, a glorified
Yes.
body, but He is still physical. So I think sometimes we just have this we just miss the story. The whole
Yes.
story of Scripture is actually one of us being in bodies, and
Yeah.
to eat food. I mean, to enjoy food and to enjoy the fruits of the earth and to enjoy what the Lord has given us. That's part of
Yeah.
what we're designed to do. And so when we just totally separate it, man, we miss out. We miss out a whole lot of flourishing and a whole lot of abundance because there's so much
Yeah.
good that can come from moving our bodies and enjoying food. So yeah, I just want to kick that back to
Absolutely.
you if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
No, I completely agree. And one of the things that I have to really impress upon people is the act of stewarding your own health is a form of worship and
Yes.
glorifying the Lord. I mean, you only get one body,
Yeah.
right? Now you're going to get a glorified body, but here on earth, you only get one shot at this. Now,
Yes.
whatever card you were dealt, you got to play the hand you were dealt.
Hmm.
But it's up to you to play it to the best of your ability, right? Not just be like, well, I fold. A lot of people are folding their cards
Yeah.
before they've even had a chance to see what their body is capable of and
Yes.
see what it really feels like to be healthy, to really thrive in your health. So I just really harp on stewardship, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
how important is it to steward this one thing the Lord gave you to walk around? He's going to infill this thing.
Yeah.
You're going to walk around with it. And this is the thing he's given you to put your hands and feet to the plow and do the work he's asked you to do and glorify him in the world. And we would not take care of it. Like we would treat it like an amusement park and just act like it's going to last forever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and we're wondering why, oh man, my knee hurts. Oh, I got GERD. I've got all these issues. And well, I'm just guess the Lord's testing me. Maybe, or maybe you just got a fast fork. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely. No, that's
so
good.
there's a lot there. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that there's also then this challenge of you've identified some issues of our lives are more sedentary. We just don't move around as much. Our food is in general, we have a lot more access to very inexpensive, very tasty, easy to eat foods that are very, very like high in calorie and high in fats, high in carbohydrates, which are all, fats and carbohydrates are good things, which I'm sure we'll get to in a little bit. But
yeah,
but in this highly tasty, very easy to eat
yeah,
thing, it's very easy for us to eat too much of it. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, so then also we have this like the number one killer of Americans is heart disease, which is a lifestyle, that's a lifestyle sickness, that's a lifestyle disease, along with like all sorts of other diseases that come along with just, alcohol and smoking, all these kinds of things
Yeah.
that use too much can just wreck our bodies. But then on
Yeah.
the other hand, we have more access to information, to dietary plans, to other kind of like quick fixes and miracle cures than ever. So we kind of have this, we see this issue of we have more information now than we ever have about what to
Mhm.
eat, how to exercise, all this stuff. But we don't see any significant progress being made in reducing those kind of like chronic illnesses, reducing lifestyle illnesses, that kind of stuff. So talk to us about why the current kind of like maybe diet culture or whatever you want to call that, why hasn't that been able to meet the need that we have of unhealth right now, and maybe even specifically in our churches?
Well, well, that's a huge topic for one,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you touched on a couple of things that are really important to understand. Is that, and if I go too long, you have to just cut me off
Okay,
because I love this
I'm
stuff,
timing
right?
you.
So we have to realize just because something can go in your body doesn't mean it's food.
Okay.
Okay. Just because you can eat it and then it passes through you doesn't mean it's food. I can feed you pennies, but it doesn't mean your copper levels are going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But so we have to realize what is food. Food is not something that comes out of a factory. Food is things that come from the earth,
Yeah.
things that walk in the earth, swam in the sea, come from trees, plants, come out of the ground. The Lord put us in this ecosystem, and you notice He's put us between the soil and the sun. That's where our food come from. It
Yes.
shouldn't come from bags, boxes, cans. It shouldn't come from these places. You know, if your like some people say, if your food has ingredients, then it's not really food because
Mm-hmm.
the food you eat is the ingredient. What's in beef? Beef. What's in the
Yeah.
chicken? You know, but so we have this thing where we have this stuff that passes for food that is hyper palatable. It's extremely easy to overeat. And we think because it can go in us, it's food, but your body doesn't eat food. It
Yeah.
has chemical nutrients. It needs a certain amount of nutrients, and these things come from real food. So we've got this issue where we have tons of this really highly flavorful food, super easy to overeat, has
Mm-hmm.
almost no nutrients. So what it does is it starts to disrupt your signals on like when you're hungry, when you're full,
Yeah.
because you're really not feeding, you're just consuming.
Wow.
So what scientists call it is most people are have energy toxicity.
Okay.
They have they have so much energy, food, to the point that it's toxic. And then on top of that, they under move. So you take somebody, you immobilize them, putting them in their chair all
Mm-hmm.
day and or whatever,
Yeah.
and then you feed them things that are not real food. You've got a perfect storm of creating metabolic disease, which is killing 7 out of 10 people who die in the United States
Yeah.
every year,
Wow.
right? And these are completely preventable diseases. People think that if you get diabetes, well, you got diabetes. No, it's completely reversible. Heart disease is completely reversible.
Yeah.
Um, Alzheimer's is preventable, right? I don't know that they have a way of reversing it just yet,
Right.
but it is preventable. So we have this perfect storm of we have all of this food available to us, and there's no hardly any nutrients in it, and then we have no demand on the body to earn the thing it's eating,
Okay.
to
Wow.
earn that energy. So we just have this perfect storm. I think I'm answering your question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That was really
where
good. Yeah. There's
yeah,
a book called Ultra Processed People, and I can't remember the
yes.
guy's name now. Have you read this book?
I've 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 I have perused it. I haven't
Yeah.
read the whole thing.
So, and I can't remember. He's a British scientist, and British nutrition scientist, and yeah, I think it came out. It must have come out about a year and a half ago or more, because I remember reading it.
Yeah.
It came out right as I started my own health journey. And by the way, my own health journey really focused around food. That was kind of the big thing.
Yeah.
I had got some of the exercise stuff down, but there was the food that was the issue for me. And he talks about, he said what you said, where most of the food we eat is not really food, and he called it
Wow.
industrially produced edible product.
Oh,
Industrially
100%.
produced edible product. So it's made in factories, and it's edible, and it's a product, but it's not
Yeah.
real food. It's just we take
Yeah.
things and we break them down to chemicals, and we redo all the chemicals,
Yeah.
and then we repackage it, and people eat it. But I want
Yeah.
to ask for a little bit of clarification, because you said there was something really interesting. I want to make sure that I understand it. You talked about energy toxicity, and so I
Yes.
want to kind of nail down on that just for a second, because that's kind of interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
So
So,
toxicity is when, like, let's say I take a medicine, Tylenol,
mhm,
acetaminophen, that is hard on whatever. I can't remember which one is bad for your liver,
your
ibuprofen
liver.
or acetaminophen, whatever it is. But like, whichever,
Acetaminophen is bad for your liver,
okay, whichever one
eventually.
is bad for your liver, you take it in a little bit, and like your liver can work through it and can do it, and it's fine. You'll be okay. But if you take too much of it, you get to toxic levels, and
Yes.
that's when it starts doing damage.
Mhm.
And so when we eat, we intake calories, which is the energy that our body uses to operate and to live and move and do all of that stuff.
Mhm.
So now we are taking in too many calories, so much so
Yeah.
that it's becoming toxic. It's actually causing damage to our. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Am I understanding that
Yeah.
correctly?
So toxicity is all dose dependent, right? So like the dose makes the poison. Water is good for you, but I can kill you with water with too much of it,
Yeah.
right? So energy toxicity is when you are consuming so many more calories than you need
Yeah.
on a daily basis that you are storing fat, you are storing that energy as fat
Mm-hmm.
at such a rate that it's very difficult for your body to keep up.
Yeah.
So what happens is once you get to a certain level of being overweight and under muscled, those two go together.
Mm-hmm.
Like how much extra body fat you have compared to how much muscle mass you have is a ratio that matters. But once we get to the place where you are getting to obesity,
Mm-hmm.
things start to change in your body, like your hormonal balance starts to change. You start aromatizing testosterone, meaning you start turning it into estrogen. Um, you start changing your hormonal signaling. So now you're always hungry, you're hardly ever full, right? And you just are constantly having trouble, being full. But then when you do try to exercise, nothing happens because you have gotten to this level where you're so overweight
Mm-hmm.
that signaling is completely confused.
Wow.
So you are energy toxic at this point.
Okay.
So this is when you start getting prediabetes, which is technically insulin resistance, which leads into branches off into all of the metabolic diseases you see, heart disease, kidney disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes. It starts branching off into these other areas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally we eat way too many calories
Mm-hmm.
and we move way too little. I know eat less, move more is not good advice.
Sure.
It's nuanced
Mm-hmm.
on what that actually means to make that work.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the average person is eating way too much
Interesting.
for the amount of expenditure that they have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And there are ways around that. There are ways around like
Mm-hmm.
making sure that what you are eating is really good,
Yeah.
which by just making your quality better, you bring the total amount of calories down.
Okay. Yeah.
So there are a lot of ways around it. You don't have to be like, well, now I got to diet and I got to do intermittent fasting and I got to do all this. You don't have to do any of that. It
Okay.
really is just about using certain information, understanding what food is best for you, what food is not the best for you, and then focusing on 70% of the time what's best for you.
Yeah, that's great. So
Right?
I want to
So,
drill down. I want to drill down on that, because I want to get us into if someone wants to start their fitness journey, start their health journey, I want to nail down on that because you
Yeah.
said kind of a common way that people think about it is to eat less and move more. And so people
Yes.
try to like restrict what they're eating, so much so, and they kind of go on the cycle, the roller coaster, where they're eating
Mhm.
very little and then they eat a whole lot, and they're kind of back and forth. And then they also have the difficulty of beginning to move and trying to overdo it, trying to do too much exercise. So I want to drill down on
Yeah.
both of those issues, but let's keep rolling on nutrition since we're kind of already
Okay.
there. So you said that eating less is nuanced, that it
Yeah.
is, and it is nuanced. So let's just start from like bare minimum, which you kind of gave us some information already. But let's say somebody is just used to they kind of have their normal grocery list that they get. They kind of have their normal foods, and maybe it's a mix of like getting pizza out or getting a hamburger for lunch from fast food joint every once in a while. But they feel like for the most part they're eating at home. You know, they're eating at home a
Yeah.
lot, but they still feel like they're sick a lot. They still feel like they don't have a lot of energy. They're still feeling hungry all the time. And so then when you say, hey, eat less, then they're feeling, oh man, like I don't feel like I can eat less. Can you just give us
Yeah.
like ground zero, if somebody had no idea what eating healthy meant, what does it mean to eat healthy in a way that gives our body health? Can you just kind of like start from the ground and
Yeah.
then build us up from there?
Yeah. So, many of us think that the body, like, if I eat until I'm full, then I have, I have everything I need. But the body doesn't use what the body uses for fuel is nutrients, right? So you have to have nutrients. That means you got your zinc, selenium, amino acids, fatty acids. Those are the things your body is really trying to get. Okay. Those things are not present in protein bars and granola bars and pretty much anything that has a commercial. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the first thing we have to realize is you need to eat as much real food as possible. Okay. Real food means stuff that your grandparents and great grandparents would have eaten.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If they would not there's at least 15,000 new food products in a grocery store every year.
Yeah. Wow.
And they're usually just a combination of sugars, fats, other cheap oils, and grains.
Mm. Mm.
So that's what's really driving it. So let's just think we need to eat real food first.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I tell people you need to eat less, you don't need to eat just less total. What you do is you focus on good quality and nutrients, and immediately less comes down because hunger is the number one reason why people fail diets.
Yeah.
And when you're hungry, it's usually when you're truly hungry. Like I tell people, like, if you're hungry and you won't eat a boiled egg,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're not hungry, you're bored. You know what I'm saying? Or if you won't eat a dry chicken breast, you're not hungry, you're bored. But when you're hungry, your body is actually wanting nutrients.
Okay.
Okay. So what we do to stave off hunger is we eat plenty of good animal proteins, plenty,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not gonna kill you. You're not gonna get heart disease from steaks. Humans have been eating steaks and cows for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
The first case of heart disease in the United States was in 1912. Okay. So at what point did all the steak start killing everybody?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was never the steak. It was never the eggs,
Yeah.
right? Your mom and dad, your grandparents didn't have any of those issues.
Mm-hmm.
So we're eating good animal products, lots of fruits and veggies, and we're keeping processed foods to a bare minimum.
Yeah.
When by processed, I mean if it comes in a package, it's got a box, it's got a commercial. It's things that you would be considered treats rather than actual food.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you were the type of person who's going to start this journey, the first thing is just get the packages out of your diet.
Mm.
Just get the packages out and start eating real food. Food that walked on the ground, swam in the sea, grew out of the ground, came off a tree, right? Very little processing whatsoever. And then the other thing is to realize, um, the size you are, like how much fat mass you are, is based on diet.
Mm-hmm.
How much muscle you have and what your shape looks like underneath there is when working out. So you don't work out to get skinny.
Yes.
You eat properly to lose fat. You work out to keep muscle mass and mobility,
Mm-hmm.
right? So those two go hand in hand. So many people are like, well, I just need to do more cardio. If you
Mm-hmm.
just do more cardio, all you do is get hungrier.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just you just replace the thing you did, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the best place to start for most people is like, hey, just start eating real food. Like I know Coca-Colas are great. I know Cheez-Its are great. I know they all taste awesome, but it's not food.
Yeah.
It's not food. So what your body is starving for is nutrients, but it has plenty of energy. So you
Mm-hmm.
have energy toxicity and malnutrition happening at the same time.
Wow.
So does that make sense? Am I
Yeah.
rambling?
No, 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 that's great. So just your first step is real food. I mean, that's number one. And I would
Real
probably
food.
say, correct me if I'm wrong, that you would probably say that's the most important thing is
Absolutely.
just
Well,
eating real foods.
I would say the two things that go hand in hand, it's hard to say what is most important. Um, I would say, I used to say diet was the most important thing,
Okay.
but the new studies would show that exercise by far is probably the most powerful intervention for health that we know of
Okay.
in in science.
Okay.
That is bolstered significantly
Mm-hmm.
by having a diet that is minimally processed
Mm-hmm.
and filled with foods that your great grandparents and your grandparents would have recognized,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think those two go hand in hand. I think exercise is probably the most powerful
Okay.
intervention because exercise sends signals to your body to use the food you're eating
Oh.
properly,
Yeah. Okay.
right? So it tells it what to do with it.
Yeah.
So if you're not exercising and you're just eating, you're kind of just shoveling stuff in.
Okay.
It's not being used properly.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, building any muscle mass. You're not burning off fatty acids or your sugars and all this other stuff. So
Right.
you kind of have this mixed signaling happening. So exercise is probably the most important, but diet is absolutely right there.
So then now talk to me about, because I know one thing that probably a lot of people have, if they tried to diet and maybe they've
Yes.
replaced, lunch with a slim fast or whatever it might be, you know what I mean? They've tried to diet, they've tried to eat less. And feeling so highly restrictive has been part of the problem, is that it feels like they don't have a lot of options to choose from.
Mhm.
So talk to us about how important variety is if you in your clients, because you work with clients one-on-one with nutrition. How important
Yeah.
is variety in being able to maintain this kind of lifestyle change, this food change in people's lives?
Okay. I might go the opposite direction on you here.
Okay.
Okay. I think variety, when it gets to a certain point, is a distraction
Okay.
because when you have a ton of variety, you tend to end up entertaining your palate rather than eating for fuel, eating for health. We
Mm.
eat for feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? Food was never meant to satisfy a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's never meant to make me feel better. It was meant to give me energy, make me strong, and to be enjoyed, obviously, with thanksgiving and praise, obviously. So I'm a big fan of having fewer options
Okay.
because it's easier to stick to. All right. It's just easier to stick to. If you know I'm going to eat, I've got a list of this many recipes,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what I stick to for right now. And then every once in a while I get bored with that, I'll kick my heels up and do something else. But the biggest thing that makes one of the biggest thing that makes dieting difficult is people feeling the need to entertain their palate rather than eating what they know they should be eating.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, people they ask me all the time, how can you eat eggs every morning? And I'm like, well, they're like nature's multivitamin.
Yeah.
They're delicious, and I can make them 1,000 different ways,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm eating them because I know, like there's a recent study that showed if they studied a bunch of kids and they gave one group of kids had no eggs in the morning, another group of kids had at least one egg every morning. And the kids that ate an egg had a 15-point IQ advantage increase
Oh my
over the
goodness.
kids who did because eggs are a superfood for
Yeah.
your brain,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're also being looked at right now as preventative for Alzheimer's. So, so I think finding the foods that you really like to eat that fall into certain categories.
Mm-hmm.
You have good quality, high protein,
Mm-hmm.
veggies, good fruits that have a lot of, micronutrients.
Mm-hmm.
And steering clear of, and this is just my opinion for most people, steering clear of things like too much bread, pasta, rice, um, dressings, things that have a ton of calories in them and not very much nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, it's energy toxicity. So I tell people, listen, you can eat as much protein, veggies as you want,
Mm-hmm.
and like a couple, two, three pieces of fruit a day. If you do that, it's going to be so difficult to overeat.
Yeah.
It's like you're just so full
Yeah.
that you're, I don't really want a snack. What is a snack even doing right now? So I think the I think variety is overrated
Okay.
because it becomes a distraction. People are always like, well, I need the new thing. I need to make this type of this and this type of that. It's like, no, man, just eat the thing you know you should be eating. Be okay with it. Make it delicious in the way you want to make it delicious,
Yeah.
as long as it's relatively healthy. And, enjoy your life because you're going to be healthier. Because at the end of the day, nothing tastes as good as healthy feels.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? So it's like there's no need to entertain your palate. Many of us have we ask food to be something that it was never created to be, and that's entertainment, satisfaction, meant to be some type of feeling, some type of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And it was never meant to do those things. It's meant to help you thrive in life.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I don't know if I think that answers the question.
no, no, that was really good. Yeah. And I think that there's also, um, by the way, there might be something interesting. This is totally just off the subject. Chasing a rabbit hole, we're not going to chase, but you keep talking about. I liked how you said that we're asking food to be something that it was never meant to be, which is entertainment. And I couldn't help but think about the Greek god Dionysus, who's the god
Yes.
of wine and feasting and sex and revelry. That like those things in the Greek culture, they all went together. You know what I mean? Where food and like it became entertainment along with other things as well. So that's a whole other rabbit hole that we can't chase down.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to hear from you, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are gonna push back and they're like, oh, but I really like, I just love having my ice cream or my cookie, and I really just like, I love having one a day or one every other day. So I kind of want to hear from you when you have worked with your clients and they've been, maybe they're like on it, they're doing really good, but they still have that like little hankering, little sweet tooth. How
Yep.
do you coach them through that? I mean, how what is your coaching through that kind of feeling?
That's a very good question. And the thing is everybody's different. Everybody is on a spectrum moving towards a better, healthy way forward. Okay. So some people are starting to where, like, I don't have a hang up with ice cream. I never have. I've
Mm-hmm.
just never been that guy. But I have clients who are like Ben and Jerry's every night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the first thing is to realize just because something is not the best for you doesn't mean it's evil.
Yes. Okay.
It's toxicity. Toxicity is dose dependent.
Okay.
Okay. So I tell people, listen, I'm not telling you you can't have the thing you want. I'm just saying there are no free lunches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing free in this life. You don't get to just eat like you're 10
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of your life. You just don't get to do that, right? It's not responsible. So I try to move people towards 80% of the time, you're eating the food you know you should be eating.
Okay.
It's going to be good high protein.
Mm-hmm.
By high protein, I don't mean like you're going out and getting fried chicken. I mean, clean,
Yeah.
high protein meals, good veggies. You're kind of not snacking. You're limiting your meals per day, 2 to 3 meals a day, usually for most people, usually three for most people.
Hmm.
And then 20% of the time, you can kick your heels up because you're an adult.
Yeah.
You're an adult. You don't need permission to go do the thing. It doesn't have to be your birthday to go buy a birthday cake. You're an adult. You can have that. The thing is when you're making excuses for having it all the time,
Yeah.
it's no longer it's no longer you choosing it, it's you making excuses for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing something you know you shouldn't be doing
Hmm.
in spite of stewardship.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
not saying, hey, don't eat that. I went I went to In-N-Out yesterday.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had a couple double doubles, some French fries,
Hmm.
but how often do I do that? Hardly ever.
Right.
But I had friends in town, so I went and did that.
Hmm.
And they wanted to eat it. So the thing is no matter where you're starting, you start moving your life towards 80% of the time, I'm eating the foods I know are best for me.
Yeah.
20% of the time, I kick my heels up, I make a decision as an adult that this is what I want to do.
Hmm.
But I do it in moderation. And as soon as I take care of that, I have that little sweet tooth, satisfied or whatever, I get right back on track.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's when it's when that one thing
Yes.
leads into tomorrow,
Yeah.
and then the next day, and then the next day. So, some people need to be complete abstainers from that kind of stuff because of personality.
Hmm.
Other people are moderators. I'm a moderator. I can have a cookie and just walk away. I'm good. I don't have to have 6 cookies.
Hmm.
Some people got to have all the cookies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like you just can't touch the cookies.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about knowing where you are, who you are, and how you react to things. And having grace and mercy and dealing with that as we go forward, right? None of this is one of the things that I think people really need to know is because of the food environment we find ourselves in, health is now a skill set.
Okay.
It is not something you just have. It
Hmm.
is something you must acquire and develop,
Okay.
right? The skills to navigate your grocery store, to navigate ingredients, to navigate just how you live your life at home, because you can just sit around all day now
Right.
and still make your money and still pay your bills
Hmm.
and then order DoorDash and you didn't have to get up. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's like it's a skill set on how we navigate it now.
Yeah. That's
So
great. That's
if
great.
you're gonna have the sweet thing, you can have it.
Yeah. Well,
Be an adult about it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
absolutely. Well,
yeah.
I think the 80-20 rule, that's a helpful way to think about it. By the way, Jameson, sorry, I just got a text that somebody listening online can't hear my mic very well. They said that it's pretty low. Okay, all right, so you're aware. Okay, um, but that's really helpful. And I know that in my own experience, I tend to be a little bit more of I'm not the moderator. That I don't like
Okay.
if there is a package of cookies or something, like I have to eat that thing till it's gone. So
Yeah.
I almost have to be and really probably for the first almost year I had to be just almost completely abstained. I can't.
Yeah.
I ate almost nothing but chicken and broccoli for like 6 months. Um, but what I've noticed is that recently. Um, Even though with the move and stuff, that's kind of when you move and when you have big life things are up and down. You've experienced that recently as well. It's harder to stay locked in, but even now I'm seeing more of the that shift in my own life, being able to say no. I can have that. I can have that scotch or that glass of wine or whatever it might be, or that bowl of ice cream because we're celebrating whatever birthday or something, and it's like, oh, it can actually stop there. And I
Yeah.
know, like, I feel better about that because the rest of the week I know I've been eating whole foods the rest of the week.
Yeah.
I've been eating good and eating really
Yeah.
well and fueling my body, and I don't feel gross or bad
Yeah.
after having that thing, and it almost makes it better because you just
Yeah.
know, hey, that's like You can, and then,
It's
and
an
I
actual
liked how you
treat.
also mentioned that you plan it. You plan for those things. That
Yeah.
you are choosing that thing instead of being under the control of it. That
Yeah.
hey, I'm going out with my friends. We're gonna have a couple drinks. We're gonna go out to eat. I'm gonna have a burger and fries. I know that's coming on Friday, but that doesn't mean that on Tuesday I have to just be like, well, it doesn't matter because I know I'm going to eat too much
Yeah.
then. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and you know that you're in, and so then just
Yeah.
if it's more than normal, or if you have too many calories that day, or if you don't eat exactly to what you're wanting to eat that day, it's like it's okay
Yeah.
because you know that you are eating well the rest of the time. That's a really helpful way to think about it.
Can I speak to one more thing?
Yeah, please.
Big thing, especially what you mentioned, is many people try to moderate, like when they first start dieting, they try to moderate when their palate is still very much um, geared towards eating really like processed foods, lots of
Yes.
sweet. That's really difficult to do to moderate. So if you do kind of what you did, where you take a pretty significant amount of time, 3, 6 months, where you're just really locked in and you're eating really good food and you're not really splurging, what happens is your palate changes significantly.
Mm,
And then, you know what, rather than having ice cream, you know what tastes really good? Greek yogurt with some berries and honey.
yeah.
That is almost as good to me as ice cream
Mm-hmm.
because my palate changed so much. And now I'm actually eating something that has protein in it, has good fiber in it, has good vitamins in it. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so splurge goes from even being really bad to being something that's actually pretty good for me. You know what I mean? Well, but you have to take the time to change those taste buds because if you don't, you're taking somebody who's addicted to like really palatable foods and you're saying no, you can't have that or you can have just a little bit and it's like
Yeah.
you just let the beast out the cage, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
take off, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely worth thinking about.
No, that's really good. So if you're, I just kind of want to go back and make sure that I reiterate things well. So if you are somebody who is, maybe you are feeling adverse health effects, maybe you feel sick, or you feel like you're overweight, um, the the kind of like baseline to start with is get 3 meals of whole foods, of real
Yeah.
foods. Focus on those proteins like meats and eggs. Focus on those
Meat,
things. Take a
chicken.
mortgage out. Get that dozen eggs. Do whatever you need to do, right? To do it. Yeah. You eat meats and eggs and vegetables, and just
Yeah.
kind of reduce all the other stuff. Just try
Yeah.
to eliminate it as much as you can. If you
Yeah.
start there and get a few fruits a day, if you just
Yeah.
start there, that is the place to start. And
I
then,
agree. I think so.
okay,
And I would say for the average person, like probably 80 to 90% of Americans have some form of metabolic dysfunction.
mhm,
And that usually starts with just consuming far too many carbohydrates in general.
okay,
Just in general. Carbohydrates don't make you fat. Let me just go ahead and say that right out of the gate. They don't make you fat by themselves,
hmm,
but they are extremely easy to overeat and they're very prevalent in a lot of our foods. So by having good high protein, veggies, a little bit of fruit, and avoiding certain things like pastas, rice, cakes, pies, things that are basically nothing but sugar and
yes,
carbohydrate,
yeah,
you immediately lower that toxicity level
okay,
and things just start to right themselves. Like you'll find like your energy kicks up, you sleep better, all this stuff. So yes.
that's good. So we did have a question that somebody asked, because I want to piggyback on it, because you mentioned, in general, the American diet, we get too many carbohydrates, in general, too many. Not that carbohydrates are bad, we just get too many of them. So
Yes.
carbohydrates would be, um, like the sugars found in fruit, but also the sugars found in like sugary snacks, but also things
Yes.
like bread and rice and quinoa and pasta. And so
Your
that's a
grain. Mostly your grains. Yes.
grains. Okay, so any grain. So that's a mix of good and bad. And
Yes.
somebody asked about the food pyramid, what you thought about the food pyramid. Now, but you just mentioned that you feel like we get too many carbohydrates. So maybe give us a little rundown on. We all learned. I know that it's different now for young people, but at least when I was growing up too, and I'm sure most people who are watching, when we grew up, we got the food pyramid where they said carbohydrates are the base of the pyramid. That's the most things that you want to get. And they meant good carbohydrates, of course. They meant good breads and things like that. But talk to us about that, the food pyramid. What is your take on that?
So a little history. The
Okay.
food pyramid was never created by scientists. It was created by um, marketing people who were subsidizing the grain industry.
Okay.
Okay. So, so the food pyramid was a suggestion by the government based on how to sell more grains, which at the time, I don't think they realized what it was going to do to people. But if you were to eat 11 servings of grains a day, you have basically eaten probably 3 to 4 times more carbohydrates than you need a day.
Wow.
And you've also gotten almost no nutrients because grains, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but grains offer little to no nutrients because of how hard they are to digest, which is why they have to be soaked, they have to be milled, they have to be all this other stuff. Okay. So remember, the body runs on nutrients.
Okay.
Okay. Calories matter, but the nutrients in those calories matter just as much. So if the food pyramid is based on something that's basically not nutritious,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're basically starving your cells,
Mm-hmm.
over energizing your body, energy toxicity,
Yeah.
and all the things that have the most nutrients, which are like beef, eggs, these types of animal products, those things were placed at the top in the smallest amounts,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
So
Mm-hmm.
now you're over energized with too much energy and no nutrients.
Wow.
So if you were to flip that pyramid over, you're
We good.
perfect.
Okay. Okay, good. So not a fan of the food pyramid. That's what I'm
No,
getting
no,
at.
because it was never, if you really think about how humans eat,
Yeah.
think about how humans really eat,
Yeah.
right? If you did not have farming and grains like wheat fields forever,
Mm-hmm.
where would the majority of your calories come from? It would have to come from animals because plants don't provide enough
Yeah,
calories,
right. Mm-hmm.
right? So the majority of your calories should be coming from animal products. And I know some people say heart disease, all this other stuff. I can just tell you without getting too deep into it, no animal products are going to cause heart disease.
Yeah.
Heart disease comes from energy toxicity,
Mm.
right? Or too much energy, too
Mm-hmm.
much inflammation from that. So if you flip the pyramid over, you're running in a really good place. And if you're older, which I think some people in the audience are,
Mm-hmm.
protein is even more important.
Yes. Yes.
Frailty, bone density, osteoporosis, dyneopenia, like so when you start losing your explosivity, your muscle mass, it's not just because you're old. It's because or you're getting older.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you're not processing protein as well. It's called anabolic resistance. So you have to actually eat more of it.
Wow.
So if you want to be healthy, you need more animals in your life. I'm sorry for vegetarians in the room. I
Yeah, yeah.
apologize.
Well, no, hey, we're in Omaha, Nebraska. I mean, it's home. It's home of the steak. You know
Omaha
what I mean?
Steaks,
Home of the
baby.
Union Stockyards. You know, yeah, yeah. We love a good
Go.
love good red meat here. So, but I wanna piggyback a little bit more because you talked about, especially for those who are older, that
Yes.
that red meat. I think, well, meat in general, protein specifically, becomes even more important
Yes.
because you have less muscle mass. Your muscles are becoming weaker just because of the aging process, but also strengthens
Yes.
your bones, that kind of stuff. That for injury avoidance,
Yes.
you it's actually best to increase your. And that's the other thing that
Yes.
I think that also might. I'm gonna throw my wife under the bus a little bit right now, but she would even say before I started, reading a lot and studying and learning, about this kind of thing. She would even just be like, "Yeah, I just don't like meat that much. I just don't really like, I just don't really like to have a lot of meats." And so, she would just kind of like have her diet, and she really genuinely is much healthier than I am. I mean, she overall
Sure, 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 sure. I
moves
have
a
people
lot
tell me
more.
that all
She's,
the time.
but yeah, but her mind has been changed, and so now I've got her on the protein train, and so she's been enjoying more meat. But it's also not only for those who are older, but for women. It's also
Yes.
very, very important to get a lot more protein than I think that most people think that women need, or
Yeah.
most women think that they need. That protein is
Yeah.
super important.
Yeah, it's the two things that are probably the two cornerstones. Well, there's a few, but the two that for especially for elderly people, or if you're like I'm 48, I'm not a spring chicken,
Hmm.
so but I'm not old either, so don't say it. But lifting weights, some type of resistance training, and increasing your protein intake.
Okay.
Those things alone will stave off injury, chronic disease, like Alzheimer's. Exercise is literally the number one intervention for Alzheimer's prevention.
That's amazing. And so let's piggyback off that. I want to hit now. Let's move over to exercise. So you've given us some great insight on nutrition and diet. Um, but now I want to hop over to exercise now,
Yeah.
because you've taken us there.
Okay.
I know that there's a lot of fear around exercise. There's a lot of fear specifically around weight training and lifting weights, which you highlighted as like one of the most important types of exercise that we can do.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the importance of exercise in health and in fitness. So keep taking us down that route a little bit.
Yeah.
And then if you could highlight, especially just like you did a little bit, you teased a little bit about as you age, the importance of exercise and specifically strength training, weight training.
Yeah. So exercise, the human body is not meant to be sedentary. It is an adaptation machine that requires struggle.
Mm.
Struggle creates health
Mm-hmm.
because it sends a signal for the body to take care of itself, to build up, to strengthen itself,
Yeah.
right? The more they say if you don't use it, you lose it,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is the thing. You don't get to just sit still because as soon as you sit still, you go backwards. So exercise, I would say any exercise is important,
Okay.
any type of movement. Probably the best exercise and the one most people don't want to do is walking.
Just
Probably
walking.
walking is one of the number one things you can do for your health. That's free, easy, and doesn't take a lot of effort. And you can do it all day,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, just moving in general, walking is probably the best. And then when it comes to exercise in general, some form of resistance training. It doesn't have to be weights,
Okay.
but it needs to be something that puts a strain on your muscles in order to create a signal for those muscles to get stronger.
Okay.
Because muscle mass, the amount of muscle mass you have is very directly correlated to your longevity.
Okay.
So, if you the statistics say if you're over 65 and you fall and break a hip, whether it's the hip broke and you fell, or you fell down and broke the hip,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
you have a 50-50 chance of not coming out of the hospital again.
Wow. Okay.
Okay? So how do we prevent your bones from becoming brittle?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just age,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not calcium, because Americans take in more calcium than any country in the world,
Okay.
and we have more osteoporosis and osteopenia than most countries.
Wow. Okay.
But we're also the most sedentary. So the way you build your bones is through resistance training.
Okay.
You're doing something, you're doing squats with weights, and it doesn't have to be heavy, it doesn't have to be crazy, but
Mm-hmm.
it has to be challenging enough to send a signal to your body. That could be walking, taking a walk with a backpack that has some weight in it. It could be taking the stairs to really make your legs pump. It could be going to the gym and just using the machines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just use the machines, but placing your body under some type of strain to force it to adapt, to become stronger. If we don't do that, injury goes way up, your your blood sugar control goes down,
Okay.
which remember we said prediabetes leads into all these other diseases.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So muscle mass is where you put
Yeah.
all of the sugar in your body, the majority of it, your muscle mass and your liver, right? So the less muscle mass you have, the less
Mm.
results you have a place to put things. And then you got the food pyramid telling you to eat 11, a whole loaf of bread a day,
Yeah.
right? So where are you supposed to put that if you're not exercising,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Wow.
You store it, right? It goes right here,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where it goes. And then eventually it becomes a problem. So muscle mass is probably one of the strongest predictors of longevity
Wow.
that we have right now.
Yeah. And when you say muscle mass, are you talking about muscle size, like the actual weight that your muscles, like
The
what your
amount you
muscles
have,
weigh in your body?
the amount you have,
The amount of muscle
right?
that you have.
It doesn't mean you have to be jacked. It
Sure.
doesn't mean you have to be like, oh, a bodybuilder. It just means you need to have more than you previously did,
Okay.
right? You need to be working to build as much as you can, right? And for every lady in the room who's like, but I don't want to get bulky, right? It's like, you're not going to, because there's no prevalence of ladies who touched weights one time and turned into the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the FBI has to come in and restrain them, because they just got so big, um, you know what I mean? Right. I tell people too, if you're scared to lift weights because you might get bigger, too big,
Mm-hmm.
that's like not in your car because you might become a NASCAR driver,
Oh yeah.
right? It's like, you know what I mean? Like, the chances of that are very rare.
Yeah.
But the more you can go to the gym or get dumbbells at your house or find a way to place resistance on your body,
Mm-hmm.
the better health you're going to have just in the long run.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
when it comes to elderly people, this is even more important. In my opinion, once you're past 50, if you're not strength training, you're going down fast. Like you're literally you're burning the candle at both ends because metabolically you're losing muscle mass just because of aging, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're also losing it faster because you're not using it. So we have to really focus on, remember, we're trying to steward this body. We want it to last as long as possible so we can
Mm-hmm.
more for the Lord. Well, then if all I have to do is get a $10 membership to Planet Fitness
Right.
and go 2 or 3 times a week, it's not that difficult. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Lord's not asking that much of us.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but I think it's probably the most underrated thing. People think it's diet, which it is, but exercise is proving in the literature to be probably the most powerful preventative that we have
Yeah.
for all chronic disease.
Yeah.
So,
So talk to us a little bit more. Let's kind of like what we did in nutrition. Just let's say hypothetically we have somebody who, um, let's even say despite age, because I'm guessing your answer would probably be pretty similar despite the age. But somebody who has no experience exercising or working out, or maybe they did when they were like in high school, they were an athlete and then haven't touched a weight in 40 years, whatever it might be, right? But let's say they have very little, they're very sedentary, very little movement. Let's even say maybe they're pretty overweight. Um, what is your kind of like base level? Because I don't think that you're saying that everyone needs to go out and like get a gym membership and just become a total meathead, like
no,
taking
no.
a bunch of supplements, lifting huge weights, trying to lift as heavy as we can. So what's like if someone's just getting started, what are the most important things they can do? And do they need to get to the point where they are lifting super heavy, like working just crazy hard in the gym? Do they need to get to that point? Like, is that ultimately the goal?
I would say the first place to start is moving. You just start moving. So walking, riding a bike, getting your body, developing the habit of moving your body because movement is medicine.
Mm.
And you don't want to take somebody who's really been sedentary and then start throwing them into something difficult, right? So you start really slow. So like what I tell people is like start trying to get 5 to 10,000 steps a day. Just trying and being intentional about it. And you don't have to hit 10,000 every day. If you just can get over 5, you're good. So that means when you wake up, maybe go for a walk when you do your prayer, right? Or when you take your phone calls, walk around your yard, walk around your driveway, right? Like just being really intentional about moving. So once you start developing the habit of, and you start feeling better, then it's like, hey, well, maybe let's go to the gym. Let's start going to the gym and we start doing some weights, some type of machines for our upper body. Okay. So at no point do you need to be super intense about this. At no point do you need to be the guy who like now all of a sudden you've got the gym bag and you've got like you wearing headbands and you know what I'm saying, you're buying Lululemon everything. You know what I mean? Like you don't, it doesn't have to be that serious.
Yeah, yeah.
It needs to be consistent
Hmm.
and it needs to be progressively a little more difficult. That's
Okay.
it. So, I mean, like you could go to the gym 2 days a week, literally just 2 times a week,
Hmm.
and you make sure you work out your legs and you work out your upper body, some type of pushing and pulling,
Okay.
3 or 4 sets of each one. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it,
Hmm.
but most gyms also have trainers that if you just tell them, hey, I need to work out 2 days a week, can you tell me what to do?
Yeah.
They'll give you what to do.
Hmm.
Right? But the main thing is getting in there and putting your muscles under some type of load a couple of times a week. And what this is going to do is it's just going to start the process of building up some muscle mass so that you start when you do eat, you're using your food properly,
Hmm.
you're developing muscle mass, you're developing bone density,
Hmm.
and you're immediately going to hormonally start putting things in the right place
Hmm.
because your health is based off your movement,
Hmm. Mm.
literally based off of your movement,
Wow.
right? So
Hmm.
if you are not moving, your health is going down.
Wow. Okay.
The more you are moving, and I don't mean like running and doing marathons and all that. That would be chronic exercise. We don't, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about moving your body regularly throughout the day, picking things up and taking the stairs rather than the elevator.
Hmm.
Like just doing things probably healthy people do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then doing some type of resistance training a couple, 3 times a week, and you're perfect. Like literally, that's all you got to do.
Hmm.
And the good thing is it actually becomes addictive because once you start feeling like you're winning, you
Yeah.
want to keep,
Hmm.
and then you realize, wait, I'm sleeping better. Wait, I look better. Oh, my pants are fitting better. I don't have as much aches and pains when I wake up in the morning, right? Life just gets better. So I would say that's even more important than diet to some extent.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So then, are you? Um, I mean, so your encouragement is even just start light, move light weights.
Yeah.
Don't even try to like see how far you can go. Just
Yeah.
move to get started, and then as you progress and as you learn, then you'll become more comfortable. I mean, is that the encouragement that you would have?
Yeah, because the habit is more important than what you actually did,
Okay.
you know?
Okay.
Because the habit, you don't, like, you don't go to the gym and win, right? Like, you don't
Yeah.
win at the gym,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
But when you stack up successive times of going, that's when you start really seeing results, right? So it's the consistency and the habit that is more important
Wow.
in the long run than even what you did.
Okay.
Right?
Wow.
Like you could go into the gym and make it up every time.
Hmm.
But if you do that 3 times a week consistently for 5 years, you're going to be in incredibly better shape than you were,
Right.
right? So you doesn't even have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be awesome. It doesn't have to be optimal. That's a big thing you see on social media right now. Everybody's like optimal this, optimal that.
Right.
It doesn't
Yeah.
even matter. The habit itself is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So going in and just doing it regularly,
Hmm.
that's gonna pay huge dividends down the road. There was a study done by the NIH in England that quantified the fact that for every hour you spend in the gym, you get back 2.6 hours later in your life.
Wow. Okay.
That's almost a 300%
Yeah.
increase.
That's a great return on investment. Yeah.
So, like, I went to the gym the other day for an hour. That's an extra 3 hours, 2.5 hours later in my life. And
Yeah.
if you do that every week, multiple times a week, you're just building up
That's great.
time to be with your grandkids, to be with your family, to be with the loved ones you want to be around. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
one wants to spend their last decade in a bed
Hmm.
surrounded by strangers that you used to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
You know what I mean? But you can prevent a lot of that just by the consistency of just having a regular movement pattern that you do 2, 3 times a week and you move your body as much as you can. I'm telling you, it will change your life
That's amazing.
like incredibly.
So
So
what
yeah,
so what you're saying is for all the people maybe who are just getting into this conversation, maybe they've heard all kinds of like diet advice, diet culture advice. What I'm hearing from you, and what I think that you do well is you just it seems actually very simple. I mean
it is.
the formula is very simple. You're telling us
It-
to eat whole foods,
yeah.
eat real foods and prioritize meat, eat a lot of meat and
Yes.
proteins specifically, and move. Just move as
Move
much as
as
we
much as
can,
you can.
walk as much as we can, do a little resistance training. That's that strength training a couple times a week. And if we are doing
Yep.
that, then we're on the path to health. And if we just do that consistently over time, and we continue to add resistance and add the weight to the training, and continue to lock in what we eat and
Yep.
reduce the extra things, then we're on our way to health. Is it actually that simple? Or is there
Yes.
something else that we need to pay for? Is there a supplement that we need to get? Or is it actually
Well,
that
I
simple?
mean, there's always supplements you can take, and there are things that do work. But remember, this is the 80/20 rule. So the Pareto principle is the 80/20 rule.
Yeah.
Okay. So 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your habits.
Okay.
Okay. And those habits are moving as much as you can, high protein diet, low processed food diet. So packages, bags, you
Mm-hmm.
know, things that have awesome marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Just that's not food. So eating mostly meat, veg, some fruits, and then moving as much as you can, lifting weights or doing some form of resistance training a few times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Those are going to get you, and if you're making sure you're sleeping, obviously, like if you're sleeping 4 hours a night, you're burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah.
But sleeping like at least 7 hours a night, if you do those three things,
Okay.
it gets you 80% of your health results.
Okay.
True. 80%. The other things where people are like, yeah, well, you need to cold plunge and you need to sauna and you need to intermittent fast and you need this green smoothie and you need that. That's all splitting hairs.
Yeah.
Those are the little rocks. We're looking at the big rocks.
Yeah.
The big rocks are the ones that move the needle,
Yeah.
right? Can you do cold plunging and, take all those supplements? Sure, they'll help. But if the rest of your life is kind of a dumpster fire,
Right.
it doesn't matter if you drink the green smoothie,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? Like the green
Yeah.
smoothie is not going
Absolutely.
to help the fact that you're sleeping 4 hours a night.
Yeah. No, that's great. So then if you do those three things, you're on your way to health. You are getting
Yes.
health, you are getting fit, you are able to have the kind of like physical and mental and spiritual uh, fitness to do what God's called you to do the things
I,
that
I
He's
believe
asked you to
so.
do. And then if you want to do a marathon, then you can add on to that. Then you can start building toward that. But
Yes.
just general fitness, we do those three things. We eat whole foods, prioritize protein, move as much as we can, and 7 hours of sleep. Then we're well on our way. That's
Yes.
incredible. So I'm
But
guessing. Go ahead.
the thing is too, I don't know if you've ever read the book by Simon Sinek, The Infinite Game.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, the infinite game is there is no destination.
Yes.
The game is the journey.
Yeah.
So you're always learning, you're always working to get a little bit better, you're always pushing forward somehow. You're taking information and you're trying it and
Hmm.
discarding it if it doesn't work for you. Right? So it is as simple as those few things, but it can be much more complicated the more you get into it. But it's
Yeah.
about learning, it's about understanding, it's about taking a real desire and wanting to be better in this area in your life.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just like if you wanted to learn any skill,
Yeah.
if you want to learn to play the guitar, you start watching YouTube like a crazy person to figure out how to play the guitar, right? It's the same thing. You start trying and always learning. Just like you read your Bible, you don't stop reading your Bible because you read it once,
Right.
right? You're always reading, you're always trying to get better. You're always, so it has to be that kind of mentality too, right?
Yeah,
But if you
that's good.
start with those big rocks, you're well on your way
Yeah,
to mitigating so many chronic diseases that people are dying of, and they don't have to.
yeah, yeah,
Don't have to.
yeah.
So yeah.
That's so good. So if someone's doing this and they're feeling good, maybe they lock in for a few months or maybe just a couple weeks, and they fall off the wagon, or they have a hard time feeling motivated to do it. Maybe it's getting too exhausting and too repetitive, and they just feel like they're not. Maybe they see great. Maybe they feel like they lose some fat, they build some muscle, they're really feeling good, but then they slow down and they don't see the changes physically as much as they used to, um, and they fall off the wagon. What are some of the obstacles, and what are some of the ways to overcome the obstacles that people might have in their fitness journey?
I think, okay, well, one is it has to go from something I do to something I am.
Okay,
It has to be part of your identity.
okay,
Because if it's not part of who you are, when life gets in the way, you will push it to the side, right?
mm,
That's the difference between motivation and purpose.
mm-hmm.
This is my fitness is attached to my purpose,
Mm-hmm.
right? As a dad, as
Yeah,
a husband, as a pastor, as a coach, as a friend, because it makes me better at all those things,
mm-hmm.
right? So when I'm not feeling motivated, I go anyway because
Yeah,
my daughter is your dad,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
When I'm not feeling great or I got sidetracked, I just start over the next day.
Yeah,
No judgment, no judgment, no
mm-hmm.
condemnation,
Mm-hmm.
always compassion, right? You're human. You're going to fall off the wagon. You're going to miss. You're going to slip. You're going to fall. It is what it is.
Yeah,
The people who the people who break the most are the people who are the most rigid because rigidity is fragility,
okay,
right? It's fragile. But if you're determined and you have a vision for where you want to go, then you can be flexible with that because you're going to constantly come back because
mm-hmm.
it's part of the vision of who I am. So I'm like, the first thing to do is focus on the habits.
Okay,
Focus on the habits so that the habits become part of who you are.
mm-hmm.
Right? So like I talk my daughter, I make her work out with me once a week
Okay,
right now. And she'll be like, I don't want to go. And I'll say, well, what's your last name?
mm-hmm.
And she's like, bro. And I'm like, and what do the bros do? The
Mm-hmm.
bros exercise, the bros take care of their bodies. They steward the thing God's given them. So it doesn't matter if you don't want to go.
Yeah,
Your last name is creating your purpose. So
yeah,
you're going. So
so,
it's focus on the habits, focus on the consistency more than the results, because results will come.
mm-hmm.
But if you have no consistency, you will have no results. So it doesn't matter,
Yeah,
right? So you can't put the cart before the horse. Consistency has to be there. We can't be upset about results we didn't get from the work we didn't do,
yeah, mm-hmm.
right?
That's good.
So focus on consistency, focus on the habit, and then when you do stumble, Ephesians 2:8, it's by grace. This is all grace.
Yeah,
There's no condemnation here.
mm-hmm.
It's stewardship. It's not religion. It's none of that. It's, people are always looking, they want balance, but they want to make sure they focus on rigidity with themselves
Yeah, sure.
and
Uh-huh.
give other people grace about things, but then they're really hard on themselves about stuff. And I'm like, you deserve, if you fall off the wagon, let me just say, Eric, if you came to me
Mm-hmm.
as my friend and said, dude, I'm really struggling. I fell off the wagon. I really got to get back on track. The way I would respond to you is the way I should respond to myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Dude,
Yeah,
it's good. It's cool, man. It's okay.
yeah,
Life has been wild. Let's take it into perspective.
yeah,
Life's been wild. You're human. You're a dad. You got kids. You got stuff going on. Now let's refocus. Let's hand it over to the Lord. Let's ask for help and let's just get right back on track.
yeah,
Yeah. Right?
yeah. That's so
So
good.
when you run into obstacles, it's best to notice where the obstacle came from
Mm,
and manage your response to that in a non-judgmental way.
great.
Last thing you need to do is beat yourself up.
Yeah,
And at no point does the Bible talk about quitting.
Mm-hmm.
So quitting is not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a season for everything. It never said there's a season to quit. So, so if this is an important thing, if this is a part of the vision of who you want to be,
Yeah.
then
Mm-hmm.
it's going to come and go. Your focus on it will wane from time to time, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But it can never stop being a part of who you are.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I don't want to stand before like this might, I don't know if this is scriptural, but I'm not trying to stand before the Lord early.
Yeah.
You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Based on my own decisions. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to fight the good fight all the way to the
Right.
end,
Yeah.
you know? So just like Paul said, we're going to finish the race.
Yes.
You're not going to disqualify yourself because of the choices you made. That's not what I want to do.
No, that's really
So,
good.
so
That's
yeah.
great. How important is accountability? Like should you bring other people into to your health journey, to your fitness journey? How does that what are some pointers that you might have in that?
Oh, okay. Accountability. If you go like, if you have somebody you know well to be like your partner in this, your chances of success go up by like 50%.
Oh,
If
really?
you have a stranger, if you have a stranger be your accountability, it goes up by like 96%.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because people don't want to let people down,
Sure.
right? So accountability is a big part of it.
Okay.
Um, when it comes to health and fitness, there's a part where people have to realize you know, you can get a doctorate in this kind of stuff.
Sure. Hmm.
So most people think they know exactly what to do, but that's like me saying, "Hey, I read my Bible, so I can argue with, you know, a guy who has his doctorate in theology." You know,
Right.
right? There are levels to this thing.
Hmm.
So having somebody who maybe understands a little more to
Okay.
be your accountability is a big deal, a big deal.
Right.
The social part of this is a big deal, but accountability is also not somebody checking on you.
Okay.
Accountability is you tattling on yourself,
Okay. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because it doesn't matter if I check on you. If
Yeah.
you don't if you don't, or if you're not willingly offering the negative information about yourself
Hmm.
or the real dirt or the tea on you,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter how much I want to help you.
Hmm.
You're coming and saying, "Hey, I really need help in this area praying. I'm going to check in with you
Hmm.
every week and we're going to talk about this or whatever."
Yeah.
That will change your approach significantly
Wow.
because now you have to you have to look somebody in the eye and say, "You know what? I completely lied about doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am a liar." So,
Yeah.
but accountability is a huge thing to win. Some people need it. Some people need gym partners. Some people need a walking group.
Hmm.
If you're a social person, then absolutely find people who will do this with you. Start a small group
Sure.
of ladies who walk in the morning,
Hmm. Hmm.
or we do prayer walks together, whatever.
That's good. That's good.
But like doing the community part of this is huge.
Yeah. Okay.
It is, yeah, it is a huge win. So absolutely.
Yeah. So bringing people into that process with you, and tattle on yourself. That's a huge part of it. Yeah.
Paddle on yourself, man. Like if you know you've just been eating like, you know, you're 15 again and there's no repercussions for what you're eating,
Right.
tell on yourself.
Yeah.
Like tell on yourself. Don't just hide
Hmm.
because then you're just gonna sit with your cookies and you know what I mean and commiserate your failures.
Yeah. No,
So
that's
don't
good.
do that. Get people involved. Get a coach, get a friend, get
Hmm.
somebody involved with you.
That's so good. That's so good. I think that's a good place to end, Adam. Hey,
Oh man.
can you run us down? Where can we find information about you if somebody's interested in coaching? Where can they
Yep.
find that coaching? What kind of services do you provide? Where can people find you?
So probably the easiest place to find me is on social media. I put most of my content on Instagram, and it's just at Adam Braud, my last name Braud. So I'm sure we can probably link that somewhere. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I put tons of information and I just ask people to message me in there, or you can email me um, at adam@adambro.com. Also, my website is adambro.com. So you can look at all that stuff. I have a podcast. Um, I've got tons of information on my website. I've got blogs. Yeah, I mean, we put out tons of information. So if somebody wants coaching, it's best just to reach out either through email or through social media. Just reach out directly to me. And I'm really good about responding to those things. And I offer one-on-one coaching. If people just want nutritional consultations, because I am a functional nutritionist. So we offer pretty much anything you might need. If you want hands-on, or if you want just somebody to tell you exactly where to go,
Hmm.
we can. So, and we try to be as reasonable with rates as possible because we do realize we're doing this to help people.
Yeah.
We're not trying to get rich doing this. So
No, that's so great, and I definitely that's been apparent in our interactions. And like I said, just personally, like my appeal to all of you, is Adam has all kinds of great information. You're like your Instagram account is like one of my favorites. It's great, just because he posts his
thanks.
meals, he posts what he eats, and it is always so simple. You know what I mean? And he just posts some good pointers, simple pointers on exercise and resistance training. So one of my favorite Instagram accounts. So if you're on Instagram, go ahead and hit him up. But also, I will say
I'm on
that
Facebook too.
he's incredibly accessible. Like I can't remember if I first contacted you via Instagram or just sent you an email, but like literally gave me his cell phone right away. So like Adam is a very approachable guy and very down to earth. So if you are looking for any help, he also has tons of free content. So it's not just your coaching, but it's also lots of free content as well. That is all excellent. It's been very helpful for me. So Adam, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I mean, this has been a great conversation.
Oh man, it's been a blessing. I'm a nerd. I could talk about this stuff all day.
That's so
So,
good.
but I really just believe for everybody in the congregation, everybody watching, that there's so much more God has for you. And just with a few small changes, you can extend the impact you have on future generations significantly. So take it seriously. Steward your body, man. God loves you and he wants to see you do more things for him.
Yeah, amen. That's so good. Thank you, Adam. And thank you all for joining us on Conversations on Christianity. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks.